So clickbait makes you click on the article or video because the title of it, etc., looks interesting. Sometimes it turns out to be nothing special and a waste of time. And then others are actually interesting by what the title had said. But back in the day, there was really nothing that did it the way it is today. Now, where could you find your clickbait? In a newspaper, of course? They have those big titles that pull you right into the topic, making you want to know more about that topic. This is how the Muckrakers work. Like every newspaper, they use these titles to pull in their readers. Today, we'll be talking about the Muckrakers from the Story of America cards, Thought and Culture, who used this with their main goal of the newspaper to expose graft and corruption. The Muckrakers were reform-minded journalists, writers, and photographers in the progressive era in the United States who claimed to expose corruption and wrongdoing in established illustrations, often through these sensationalist publications. The modern term generally refers to investigative journalism, or watchdog journalism. Investigation journalists in the United States were occasionally called muckrakers informally. In 1902, Lincoln Steffens, a recently hired editor for McClure's magazine, uncovered a sensational story about political bribery in St. Louis, Missouri. Steffens' story, called 3 Days in St. Louis, appeared in October 1902 issue of the magazine. The reader interest is generated was astonishingly and caused the magazine's owner and editor, S.S. McClure, to assign similar projects to some of his own writers immediately. In January of 1903, issue of McClure's included another story by Steffens, The Shame of Minneapolis, along with the chapter from writer Ida Tarbell's highly critical history of Standard Oil, and another story on labor union abuses by Ray Standard Baker. McClure himself wrote an initial editorial in the issue pointing out the common theme of the corruption in these articles. The era of muckraking began. The Muckrakers stressed three main themes. First, corruption was to be found everywhere in American life. Second, that if the laws were right ones and were enforced by the right men, corruption in American life would be diminished quickly. And third, that appeals to the public responsibility similar to McClure's and recollection of a collective personal guilt were necessary. Unfortunately, such appeals and exposés were rarely implemented both sides of the issue in question, causing President Theodore Roosevelt to comment, "In Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, you may recall the description of the man with the muck rake, who was offered a celestial crown for his muck rate, but who would neither look up nor regard the crown he was offered, but continued to rake to himself the filth of the floor." Following the huge success of McClure, several other national magazines took up the muckraking banner, among with American Magazine, Collier's Cosmopolitan, Everybody's Hampton, and Persons. In their pages appeared the works of David Graham Phillips, whose Treason of the Senate was in part responsible for constitutional amendment requiring direct election of senators and Upton Sinclair, whose 1906 expose of the meat packaging industry, The Jungle, included per food legislation. These and other writers of their day investigated almost every contemporary political, economic, and moral problem, and little escaped their scrutiny. The muckraking era ended finally with the election of Woodrow Wilson in 1912 and the coming of the First World War. Some today use investigative journalism as a synonym for muckraking. Carrie McWilliams, editor of The Nation, assumed in 1970 that investigative journalism and reform journalism, or muckraking, were the same type of journalism. Journalism textbooks point out that McClure's muckraking standards have become integral to the character of the modern investigative journalism. Furthermore, the successes of the early muckrakers have continued to inspire journalists. Moreover, muckraking has become an integral part of journalism in American history. And that was the Muckrakers. I hope you enjoyed this, and next time, if you're interested in the next history cards I'll be heading into here's a hint, as I'm going to talk about the Geographic Society and Yellow Press. So see you next time.